Oh, we're live. We didn't have the intro. It's all good. We got music. We got podcasts. Keith, sorry my audio is trash this week. My main travel mic is broken. I brought my backup old travel mic, which doesn't work over the USB-C port. I don't know why.
Mm.
So this is just a giant paperweight garbaggio. Um, so I'm on my AirPods today.
We're gonna make it work. I'll have to do the singing portion of the show.
Yes, yes. No one wants to hear me sing on these AirPods. Um, all right. It's been a crazy week. We had the U.S. Open. We had YCCs. We're getting ready for the World Championships in less than a month. The club season is in full swing. Bid watch is crazy already. There's a lot to get to. It's. I'm in Kentucky right now, which is why I'm not on my nice home microphone. I'm here for a disc golf tournament, and so hence the whole situation here. I've been in transit like 72 hours or something of the last 4 days. It's been crazy. But Keith, let's dig into the U.S. Open. Uh, Always an interesting tournament, and especially so this year with some of the international teams coming through. I think it'd be fun for us to dig in a little bit to the kind of the top storylines. Um, But I guess let's just start by talking about the winners. In the men's division, Truck Stop looked unbelievable, Keith. Absolutely unbelievable.
Dominant regular season showing. One of the most dominant, like, elite tournament performances we've seen from a club team in some time. They're just so far ahead of the field. It felt like. Uh, I got a chance to watch the final, and I do feel like the final was a little closer than it looked. And then you get to the like down the stretch, and Truck Stop just totally takes over. So there, there's no reason to doubt them right now. Like, as far as their championship contender status, like, they're firmly out in front of everybody, and everybody else just looking at the numbers trying to catch up.
In the bracket, Truck goes 15-11 over Machine, 15-10 over Bravo, 15-9 over Rhino, and only gives up one break. I watched their quarterfinal against Machine. I was producing the game, and at one point, Truck had not turned the disc over for 15 straight points on either line. I think their O line only had one turnover. It was an incredible performance against a very good Machine team that like had plenty of success. Joe White was awesome, and it just wasn't enough. Their defense had no solution to Truck's O.
Nothing. I mean, nobody did. uh, they should have given up a break to Rhino in the final, but Dylan Freechild tried to do his like patented throw on the run, and maybe the years have caught up to him because he just like do it to
Oops.
nobody on the goal line. But they should have. So it should have been one, but one more. But they didn't. Shout out to Bravo, I guess, for getting that one break. Shout out to Durf
So
Ribs for being first in the chat, by the way.
shout out. Uh, let's just run through the other winners really quick. Hybrid wins 15-11 over BFG, avenging a loss from earlier in the tournament. They were also really impressive, Keith. I think I really like their ability to punish you quickly on defense. And they're just deep. I mean, they have a lot of people contributing. Whether you go Sarah Nitz, Aaron Bartlett has been great for them. Mark Witten, Tracy Lowe, like they're getting like balanced contributions from up and down the roster, and I think that's like a really good position for them to be in. No surprise to see them have this kind of success, given the kind of expectations we had for them at the start of the season.
They are really deep. I mean, I don't know if their season necessarily like got off to the best start, but they did trade wins with BFG. I think even coming into the final, we had BFG as a couple point favorite, but you know that this hybrid team, when they take off, they're hard to stop. I mean, their highs are going to be as high as anybody in the division, and disappointing weekend from Shame. I'm sure we're going to talk more about that, but I think there's a lot of similarities between the two teams, hybrid and Shame.
In the women's division, Fury beat Scandal 15-11 in the final to cap a frankly dominant weekend, undefeated weekend. They beat Scandal twice. They beat Brute Squad twice. They beat Flipside. None of the games super close. Their closest game was 14-12 over Scandal in the crossover. Um, and Keith, I mean, you think about like our expectations for this team coming into the season. I mean, everybody was saying this is going to take a step back. Are they going to make semis? Is this, I mean, like, are they going to lose in pre-quarters? It all sounds ridiculous in retrospect. I mean, they looked fantastic this weekend. They could win the title this year.
I mean, what's great? I was listening to Frisbee podcast, and they were making their picks for this tournament, and one of the hosts didn't even pick Fury to make semis at the U.S. Open. God, if I ever run into that Keith Rayner guy, like I got to give him a piece of my mind. He's a moron. So, uh, Fury. I mean, I guess in some ways, like it wasn't quite the it didn't have the same pop as Truck Stop's offensive dominance, but on paper, like they pretty much kicked everyone's teeth in the same way Truck did, if not more so. I mean, they didn't even take the L. So uh, maybe they are truly the big winners of this weekend, even if a lot of people are talking about Truck Stop's statistical marvel. Uh, Fury just comes out and dominates, and in a way that to me, I know I'm sure you're going to get into me about this because during our live reacts pod, I talked about Truck Stop's offense didn't feel sustainable. I'm sure you're going to want to crow about it, but everything Fury's doing does look super sustainable.
Oh yeah. I mean, they were just suffocating teams defensively and just getting contributions from, new players to the roster and the veterans. I mean, and the pickups, like Irene Scazieri was awesome as a goal scorer for them. Anna Thompson is like really growing into the player that she has been capable of becoming. She is whether this is true or not, I don't know, but she is not credited with any turnovers this weekend with 10 assists. Uh, if that is in fact true, that's an immense weekend from one of their best handlers.
And she looked every part the star. At she and Mad Dog, Timeless Classic, and Tina Elamelik, I thought really looked like the front line for them. But I agree that their depth, their new players who I think I criticized as being a little less seasoned than their previous recruiting classes have been, really acquitted themselves really nicely. From Esther Filipek to Olivia Goss to Sarah Von Depp. I mean, I think that they fit in very well. Goss in particular has really stood out to me through the beginning of the season. So they're playing at a much higher level than I would have anticipated, and I think that has been a big part of why Fury has surpassed my initial expectations for them.
Um, we're going to get into much more on the U.S. Open in a moment. Make sure right now that you hit like, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not already. And it's time for our trivia question of the week.
All right, folks, trivia question of the week, and maybe comment down below with your answer here. See if you too can get the right response. And we're going to the Youth Club Championships. I just wrapped up this weekend. I looked back at all the Youth Club Championships we've had since the pandemic. So 2021 through this year's 2024 championships, and there are five different communities that have won at least one under 20 YCC title. So we're not counting U17. Okay. Uh, since in that time frame, that you can name all five that have won a U20 YCC title, any division, mixed, open,
Including this year, of
women's division,
course.
including this year.
Okay, well, let's start with the easy stuff. Let's start with this year's. So obviously Oregon. I don't know if we're saying cities or states, but
Yeah,
Portland
Oregon
slash
counts.
Oregon for the women's division. We congratulations to Dallas for their win in the mixed division. Very impressive. Quite the run for them. Um, then you've got Philly boys taking it down this year. And I can go back to last year because I know the Utah boys won a year ago. So that's four already, right? So I only need one more.
Yeah, actually, I misspoke. It's six. It's six is the total. I misspoke.
It's six. Okay.
Six. So
Um,
you need two more.
I don't remember who won mixed last year already. I'm gonna guess Seattle has won at least once.
It's a pretty strong
Like, did they
guess,
stack
and
their
it
mixed
is
team?
correct. They've won
um,
three times, two twice in mixed, and they won girls last year. Remember with their massive destruction of Oregon.
my last guess is Triangle.
That is incorrect. It's not triangle. Uh,
Damn,
the last one, which I think is probably the hardest one, it was both the longest time ago and the community. I think that is probably the one that people don't really think about. Lexington Pie won the mixed division in 2021. So
that is
Lexington
awesome.
Pie
I completely forgot about that.
is your sixth answer. Otherwise, it's all those teams. It's two Utahs, three Seattles, four Oregons. Oregon won their girls division three times and the boys division once. So that's your six. Oregon, Philly, Dallas, Utah, Seattle, and Lexington.
Nice. That's a great trivia question. All right, time to get to our top storylines of the U.S. Open. I mean, of course, we talked about the winners, and maybe that could end up being the top storyline. But I want us each to pick one, Keith. So you're going to pick a top storyline. I'm going to pick a top storyline, and we will discuss. What do you go to? We'll do this division by division, and why don't we start with the women's division? Top storyline.
Well, those who heard the live react show might be able to guess, but I still walked away from Aurora, Colorado, thinking about is it the Big Four and everybody else right now? To me, that is the takeaway from this tournament. Uh, Fury, Scandal, Molly Brown, and Brute Squad. Now, Brute Squad arguably not really playing like a member of Big Four. Like maybe you should say Big Three, but I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt based on what we've seen from them last year and in years past, based on their regular season performance and the roster. But maybe your storyline is going to be we should be panicking about Brute. That very well could be your storyline. But to me, the challenger class just hasn't really developed yet. Flip side didn't really put together the anything that to be impressed about. They had a close loss to Molly Brown. That was their best result of the weekend. They did beat Phoenix and Bent, but like wins over the other challengers, unless you're going to really dominate consistently, aren't really going to do it for me. Bent had some leads over Scandal and Molly Brown, I think, this weekend, but ultimately lost those three games. And then your other challengers that you would think about, right, are like Traffic, Sixers. Well, you'd think Team Canada would have potentially done better than if that was your case. They did lose a close game to Scandal that got them knocked out, but they also lost close games to Bent and Phoenix. So that indicates to me, unless you think Traffic or Sixers are better than Team Canada, which I would have trouble believing, that those teams are also probably just stuck in the challenger class. Like it feels like we have a set of teams battling for spots and quarters and a set of teams battling for a title. And there's time for that to change, but that's just where we are right now, and it's a script that we've seen before.
I want to debate you. I want to disagree. I want to come in hot and be like, nah, this is just a fiction in the middle of the season. Don't get it twisted. But I have a hard time convincing myself of that argument. Like, I need to see more from teams like Phoenix, Flipside, and Bent if I'm really going to believe that they're going to crack into that next tier. Like, Phoenix beat Brute a couple weeks ago at PEC, And then they played them again on a weekend in which Brute really did not look very good and got absolutely shellacked by Fury twice. And Phoenix couldn't win that game. And basically, Phoenix won their first two games and then did not win again. They got killed by Molly. They lose to Brute, they lose to Flipside, and they lose to Team Canada. Now, they were a little bit shorthanded, but so are a lot of teams. Flipside, they're close, right? They lose by one to Molly. They're never going to beat Fury. It's like little sister syndrome. I mean, it's just never going to happen. I mean, they do beat Phoenix and Bent, so this is not necessarily surprising. Like, this has been that, like, very close to cracking into that next tier team. But I just don't think we've seen it this year or at any other point. That's the problem. Bent, like, they got a nice win over Team Canada, but otherwise they lost the key games. Now, you're right. They were in those games, and they have the production coming from the young players that you want to see. And I really like that I'm seeing big contributions from Abby Hecko and from Jenny DeJesus, a nice pickup. Ella Jungst playing great. Uh, you know, I just, are they going to put it together? They're probably the team I feel like could crack that, crack through into that next level. I mean, I picked them preseason to make semis. I still think it's possible, but it was not an encouraging weekend for the challenger class, that's for sure.
What's your biggest storyline?
Um, I think I'm ready to go there. I mean, you already set me up, so I'll just go ahead and I'll take the fastball down the middle and I'll turn it around. Brute's in trouble, Keith. They're in real trouble. They did not look like a team that's anywhere close to being ready to win. And yes, last year they did not play that great in the regular season, but they also didn't get blown out by Fury like this. I mean, they looked very disjointed offensively. They didn't have solutions on defense. And I guess I'm just supposed to set that all aside and know that they're going to show up and play well at nationals. And that's probably true. But I don't think that this year's team has what it takes. I don't see it. There's too many leaky spots in the offense. Um, Too many turnovers. Like, the team just doesn't look on the same page. Levka still looks great. They have lots of good players. I'm sure they're going to get better, but I just don't think that this team is championship caliber right now, and I don't think they're going to get there this year. They can still make semis, but I think they like lose big in semis.
It's an interesting question. I think that there was an expectation for a little more domination maybe from the top end of their roster. And I don't know that I necessarily feel like that's happening. I think that that's a challenge for them to try and overcome. But I think I'm willing to extend the benefit of the doubt to those players. And since that is what feels like the problem to me, I do think my hand's obviously hovering over there. You can't look at the results and not be concerned, not downgrade the team. You'd be silly to totally ignore them. But I'm willing to believe still. Like if you're asking me, am I buying, selling, or holding? I think I'm gonna buy the dip, but I'm not dumping the life savings in. I got to save shares for some of the more sure blue
For,
chip stocks,
for what it's worth,
if you will.
last year at Pro Championships, they lost by 6 to Phoenix, 8 to Scandal, 3 to Molly, and like didn't really have any. I mean, they won their other games, but like none of them were against top level teams. And then they went to nationals and beat Fury in semis and killed Scandal in the final by 6. So, I mean,
I mean,
maybe,
they last year
but I
last
just
year at the U.S. Open they went 3-3, but they beat Molly Brown. Right, that to me is the difference. Is like there was a sign of hope. They lost to Fury 15-13 and 15-10. That's a lot better than 15-5 and 15-10. So
a lot better.
I think the causes for concern. It's not like it's dramatically different, but there were more signs for hope at last year's U.S. Open than there are this year. So the parallels are not it's not exactly parallel, even if they're both kind of trending in the same direction.
I mean, I guess the question is, can they work out the offensive issues? Because part of the problem was that like they couldn't be brute squad because they didn't have their defense on the field. They just kept getting broken.
Something to keep an
Should
eye
we move
on
on?
because
What's your
I'm
top?
very curious where
What's your
where they're
top
going to be next. But yeah,
storyline
let's go
mixed?
next. Whew, I think this one's the hardest one to pick. As far as like
I'm actually
where to
I have mine.
go.
Can I go?
I'll go with yours then. Yeah.
Hybrid and BFG are the two best teams in the country. They're going to meet in the national championship, and we're going to get a barn burner. I mean, am I overreacting?
Yes,
I don't know about
if you're just
shame.
like writing
We
off
we could
shame,
we could. I'm writing them off a little bit, just a little bit. It's a bad look to lose. They lost twice this weekend. They didn't just lose to Mischief. They lost to Mischief 15-9, which is wild. And then they lost to Exist in consolation. Now, maybe it doesn't mean that much. It's consolation, whatever. But I'll tell you what, it is hard to attain the same motivation to put in the effort to win a championship when you just won one the previous year. It just is. And you see it every year. Teams resting on their laurels. And it's not even that it's like people aren't trying or they don't care or they'll tell you they want to repeat. But are they doing the extra little things? Are they going to the extra track session? Are they going as hard in the gym? Is practice quite as intense as it was the year before? Maybe not. And maybe this is the wake up call shame needs. But to me, I'm seeing like just a higher level of caliber of play from Hybrid and BFG across the board. Neither of those teams lost to anybody besides each other this weekend, and a lot of their games were pretty convincing. Um, I mean, mixed is volatile. I think it's very possible we could see some surprises at nationals, but to me, what I thought preseason is still what I think, which is that Hybrid and BFG are a cut above.
Aubrey Dietrich in the chat says confirms that shame is in fact washed. So uh,
I'm not even
there's
saying they're
one
washed. They have
tally.
plenty of good players, but
I
they lost
mean,
to an Exist team that's
I
like borderline not even going to get a bid.
I kind of jokingly, like tongue in cheek, said this when we were in Colorado, but like it's funny how fast the expectation for shame turned from like being more like hybrid and that was okay to like, oh, they need to go out there and crush in the regular season. I mean, this is a team that used to, crush White Claws like they crushed opponents. Like I don't know when that trade off happened, but they only lost one regular season game last year. They lost to Amp 15-12 at US Open. And so now I guess the expectation is that they're just going to like go out there and be that team every year. And I don't know that that's entirely reasonable for this team that we've come to know. Yes, last year was remarkable. The talent is there. And maybe the vibes are different. I don't know. Maybe it is just hard to repeat. But I'm I'm less concerned about shame based on a loss to Mischief when Mischief was playing like perfectly, and then a consolation play loss. These are things that aren't really going to shake me from thinking that this team is like very much in the mix to contend for a title. There's also some conversation in the chat about Dragon and Disco Club. Disco Club. I love that the hype for this team
Disco
is
Club? No, 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 no.
well
Stop
earned.
about Disco Club.
They earned it.
Disco Club is like a backdoor semis contender. There's no way they win a title. Dragon, on the other hand, TBD. But I'm overreacting to U.S. Open. I'm fired up. BFG and Hybrid look like just fantastic. I think honestly, I think credit to Mischief for like executing in that game against Shane, but that's got every single sign of look ahead game on it for Shane. They probably thought they were going to walk that Mischief team. They came out flat, and then they were the ones that got walked. And it happens. You have to play well at the elite level of club, and if you have a bad game, you will lose. and Shame had a bad game, and they lost.
My number one story, I think I'm gonna go with maybe this is Keith focused. But I was a bit of a doubter coming into the season on AMP, and I got a reverse course. They've done the things necessary to get me to buy back in. Uh, they were playing shorthanded this weekend. They have a lot of new faces, so there's a lot of change to go on. Not only have they lost their coach from last year, which is definitely going to take some adjustment given that Patrick's been coaching this team for like a bajillion years since like the dawn of time, but they didn't even have the new coach. He had to like fly home emergency. Dave Bear just like left in the middle. So you know there are plenty of reasons for them to be disorganized, and in end result they lose two games and they're both 15-12 against the top two teams in the tournament. Um, I've seen enough to start believing in AMP and putting them in the same conversation. I think as maybe one step behind, Hybrid Chain BFG. But like for that fourth slot, if you're going to talk about Dragon, I think you also have to talk about AMP at this point. They're deep, they're still athletic. They have, I feel like all of the things that you need except for being healthy. They got to stay healthy. But they acquitted themselves really well, I think. And Emily Shields has been a great addition back to the team and has helped fill out some of the losses of players like Raha. So I'm back in on AMP.
Yeah, should you have ever left though? Like, I feel like maybe a lesson from the
You were a
beginning of
little
this
shaken
season.
by Raha,
I
Lindemore,
was. I
Scott,
was.
and
Yeah, I was. I was. I guess my point is this. We were both doubting these legacy program teams like Amp and Fury because they had some big name losses and failed to identify the fact that they're still really good and that they have people who can step up and be the new O-line player. And, Raha's really good, but she's also at the back end of her career. It's not like she's
uh,
irreplaceable in the middle of her
this all
prime.
feels like a setup for us to be like, oh yeah, now we finally have mixed pinned down and get to the quarters of nationals, and it turns out we
I'm
didn't.
definitely not
Feels like a
saying
mixed
that.
setup.
All right, let's move on to the men's division. You got your top storyline?
I can't do truck right because the truck because we already talked
You
it through
can.
that. Is that off?
You can't. I mean, you're a
That's
hater.
got to be
You're the truck O
if I'm
hater. You keep telling
if
me
I'm
that
getting
they're
there
not going to
first.
keep it
I'm
going,
doing
and
it.
then what do? They just keep it going.
Okay, yes. So I am the Trucko hater. I'm sorry because I feel like I watched Steph Curry make 30 straight threes, and I'm like, I don't think he's going to make 31 in a row. And you're like, well, you must be a hater, right? It's just
Oh my
unreasonable.
God.
They are they're playing at a level
Those are
nobody
not
can maintain.
comparable.
They're not getting broken once in the whole bracket, like having like four turnovers for the whole weekend. Like this is not a level that anybody can play at
Keith.
in elite club. It's nobody can do this for forever. I'm sorry. And
Keith.
Ask Pony about it. Rhino, Rhino in that final went in there and fricking gave them that game. I watched Dylan Freechild turn on the goal line. I watched Jack Hatchett throw it into the ground. I watched them throw into poaches. In the end of the game, yeah, DC came out and took it away. But in the beginning of the game, they got that lead because Rhino kind of handed it off to them. And I also fully am cognizant of the fact that the level of offense that they're playing at makes it so the other offense is under additional pressure. When you go up against the truck go, you're out there like, oh, if I turn over once, we might be done. So I understand that like makes your D line better to have your O line be so strong, but I fully believe that they will regress to the mean and still potentially and still have the best O line. I don't think that I'm not saying their O line's not good. Even I will admit they have the best offense in the division right now. It can't be this good. I'm not gonna buy that.
I just think that the evidence of the past 2.5 years says otherwise. Now, look, if you're going to give me an over under on bracket turnovers at nationals for the Truck offense, and you set it at 1.5, I'm probably going to take the over, but not by a ton. Like, I do think that their offense just is that good. Now, are they going to be this sharp? Maybe not. Little things have to go your way. But, like, this is an offense that goes to altitude and then hits on all their hucks and, like, barely turns it over. Like, they are just that good. Like, Johnny Malks, Jacques Nissen are an unbelievably talented duo in the backfield that we're going to see for years hold it down. And then you have Boxley and Jurek and Tyler Monroe. Like, the talent level on this team combined with their offense means that you're just not going to be able to take the disc away from them very easily. Because Johnny Malks will step up. There's a clip. It's on our Instagram. He walks up to the goal line. They tap it in. They run a pull play. Boxley goes deep. And he just casually throws an 80-yard backhand, perfectly timed and weighted to Boxley for a simple one-throw score. And they're also happy to just pick you apart with Dominator. Like, I don't know what you do against them. If you gamble and try to, like, push them out to the weak side space, they're just going to pump fake and come back across the middle, and they hit the break throws every time. Like, they are just that good, Keith. They are just that good. And I mean, I see Edward Stevens, Ultiworld senior reporter and editor, in the Discord with the big brain take that it's actually the defense that's why Truck is doing so well. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, Machine had plenty of offensive success against Truck, and really it was like the D-line's offense that was the thing that got them moving, because they'll just pick it up. AJ Merriman will just launch bombs to Alexander Fall, and their offense on both lines is good. I just think the Truck O is it's really special. It's maybe one of the best that we've seen in like the last 5 years.
I mean,
And it's amazing that they're doing it without
not that
Rowan.
everybody should accuse Edward of big brain takes all the time. I mean, that's like Edward's mantra. But let's not forget that literally the number 1 and 2 Depot winners from last year are on the roster in Troy Holland and AJ Merriman. So, like, we know the defense has chops. I just want you to know, Charlie, that in their false win in quarters last year, that their O line had 8 turnovers according to USAU. So I'm just saying that was in the bracket. They lost 2 games at nationals last year, and then sort of lost another one. So, like, again, not saying that their O line's not good. I think it'd be a fun conversation. How good an O line is their D line? If you separated their D line, if Truck Stop D was his own team, how would you rank their offense compared to the other elite offenses? That's a compelling question to me. They're that good. They're the title favorites. Give it to them, but just we gotta relax. This. We can't do it forever. We can't let them get away with this.
Yet it's still your top storyline, which tells you what you need to know. Um,
It is.
okay. My top storyline is that the title contender class is still extremely deep. For all the hype that I just laid out for you for Truck Stop, let's keep in mind that they did lose to Pony in a pool play game that they wanted to win. So it's not like this was some crystal, squeaky clean weekend for Truck. They lost by only giving up a couple breaks, but the defense couldn't do much against Pony's offense. And this is a Pony team that was not at full strength this weekend. So I think that you can look at the results from this weekend and you can see that obviously Truck is in the conversation. Bravo's in the conversation. Machine is clearly in the conversation. I think you still have to keep Pony in the conversation, considering that they did okay this weekend and they were playing large parts of it without Chris Kotcher, and Jimmy Mickles' finger is broken. Did I already say Rhino? Because if they can not beat themselves, they have all the talent that they need to do it this year, and they were playing without Matt Rader. I really liked what I saw from Rhino this weekend. I think that structurally their offense looks a lot better. And Rafi Hayes he's podium material right now. I mean, he must have made five truly incredible catches this weekend.
He
It's
was
hard to
up to
believe
some
that he's
nasty
able to pull it
work.
off time and time again. Nasty. I mean, I even think like Revolver is like a back end of title contender conversation. And, could Ring get there when Dig is at full strength? I think they're in the mix. Like, I think it's going to be a really interesting Nationals, and a lot of matchup stuff comes into play. Um, but I think we're 7 or 8 teams deep for potential winners.
That's where we thought coming into the year, and I'm surprised that you haven't been shaken at all by how good Truck looked this weekend, and maybe how poor Dig looked this weekend. I
Well,
didn't. I'm
Dig
surprised
had
it
a
hasn't
horrible
shaken
weekend.
your confidence at all.
Dig had a horrible weekend. Um, I think they need to like abandon their weird super dump thing. I think they need to figure out a few moving pieces, but at the end of the day, they still have the talent. I don't think Decrana was even there, or at least didn't
He
play.
was there but not playing.
So,
Yeah, he's hurt.
right, okay. So, that's a big deal. Like, he's a big piece. I think he's going to make their offense a lot better. But I thought they still got like good performances from a lot of their players. And they're still working stuff out, like Rowan kind of integrating into the team. That's still not all the way there. Rowan, had 8 turnovers this weekend. That's not great, but like, give it time. Babbitt's was still a monster. And yeah, it was not a great weekend. Um, they got throttled by Truck. They didn't really get any quality wins, except maybe you want to call their Team Canada win quality. But I also think we saw that they can play better than this at PEC. So I think you got to give them time. They're still figuring it out. They got a lot of new pieces to put together, but I definitely still keep them in that conversation. I
I
mean,
think we should. We're getting some
Emmett
questions
points
about
out in
some of
the
the
chat.
teams.
Yeah, Emmett points out in the chat that Big desperately needs a center handler. They need to summon one out of the abyss, says Holden. Um, I do think that, they're going to have to figure out how to operate without that, like, super high quality primary thrower. But don't they have the pieces to do that? I mean, I feel like between Rowan and Charles Weinberg and Cricket, and whoever else you want to put in that conversation, like they definitely have enough pieces to do like handling more by committee. They maybe don't have that centerpiece, super strong player. And like, are you concerned about Rowan and Cricket being too old at this point? Maybe, but I think that's more of a system problem than an actual like talent problem.
Dust off Dylan Tennell.
That's why not? Like, go for it. It's
Only they hadn't lost the
the
recruiting
kids
battle
and the
for Ryan
vets.
Osgard, Mallard, or whatever.
What else we got in the chat, Keith?
Oh well, there's a red flag, some red flag hype. We skipped over them in our mixed contenders group. There were some questions about some of the individual teams. Maybe we want to look at, kind of give our pass or fail, or thumbs up, thumbs down to some of these teams after the tournament.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. Basically, maybe like compared to our expectations coming in, how we feel like they did.
Yeah, I'm into that.
Okay, well, let's do maybe like top five-ish teams plus anybody else you feel like is interesting. Um,
Okay.
so we'll stay in the men's division for now. We've talked plenty about Truck. How about Rhino? Where are you at with them?
Thumbs up. How can you not be impressed? I thought Hendering was getting involved in a way that I think is a really good sign for him. Oh, they found a new O line star in Jack Hatchett. Who knew? Put him back on D line though. Get my man, get the fish back in the water, my guys. I don't know what you're doing over there. Yeah, they look right. Will Laurie cannot be stopped in the red zone. I'm thumbs up on this team.
Yeah, what are they? I mean, I feel like it's getting crowded on the O line, but I mean, like, you imagine, like, if they have Laurie, Raider, Raffy, and Ing downfield, like, what are you supposed to do against that? Like, they can just put any old handler out there and just lob up bombs and like have like multiple mismatch problems downfield. I really like their chances. I'm not sure. I give them a thumbs up for sure for the weekend. I'm not sure their defense is going to get there. It's a classic Oregon team problem, I feel like.
Okay, how about Pony?
I'm going to go neutral, neutral thumb. Like, they have a lot of work to do if they want to become a winning team, but the pieces are there for them to do it. And I think they have some decisions to make about who they want to put on their O line. Like, I think they look better right now than they did earlier in the season. And so, like, do you want to take Jimmy off the offense? I think that has to be a conversation. I think it just absolutely has to be a conversation. I think they they need to give their best players the best opportunity to succeed and not worry about the egos. That's my number one takeaway from this pony team.
Sam Little about to channel his college day workload. Just funnel the whole freaking offense through him. Just him and Jr. out there. Are they going to sign Calvin Brown to the full contract?
but
Get him off the
but
two
like
way.
seriously, like Sam Little, JR, Yacht, like let these guys be the centerpiece players that they are right now. And obviously Kocher when he's back and fully healthy is going to be a fantastic piece wherever they decide to put him.
Okay, who's next? Machine.
So Keith, where are you at with Pony? Then we'll go to the next one.
Oh well, yeah. I gotta give my pony thoughts. Yeah, I guess I'm neutral too. If we're gonna give that option, I guess if I had to pick between up and down, I'd say up. It's good. The truck win is beyond what I thought they were capable of. The rest of the weekend was like kind of mad, but you know they've got people in and out. There's some stuff to figure out, but they at least flashed.
Bravo. I'm going, I think neutral again. I just feel like they didn't quite get that win that you really needed to see from them. Like, nice win over Pony, but losing a truck by 5 is not great.
Yeah, neutral. I like the O line. I think they got some stuff to figure out on the D line, and maybe that's going to mean moving one of their big names guys back or having more crossover for Atkins and Finer. I'm super into Noah Coolman. I think Nethercutt had a pretty good weekend too, but yeah, this is about what I expected from them.
Team Canada men's. I'm giving thumbs up.
Okay.
OJ Sama.
Uh,
What a beast.
yeah, they got a lot of Marty Gallant, which was not what I expected coming into the year. I didn't think he would be such a focal point for them. But little dude can move. But yeah, I would say medium. I mean, it's great that they got a win over Rhino, but I feel like they kind of hit my expectations.
You want to hit any other teams or move on?
Let's do the next division. Let's go back to mixed.
Okay. Uh, is it just an auto easy thumbs up for both BFG and hybrid? Do we even need to say more?
No, that seems right. Can we auto thumbs down
Okay, how
slow?
about Mischief? I'm going to give double thumbs up to Mischief. It's not just the shame win, Keith. Like, they legitimately looked a lot better than I expected them to across the board. Um, and yes, they went 2-4, but I thought this team was going to be like not winning games. And they're solid. Like, they could definitely make nationals, and maybe win a game or two there. Uh, Kyle Johnson was awesome. Lily Stepanidis played really well. And if they're hitting, as Katie Killebrew told me off the air, when they're hitting, they're like unbeatable. And that's what I think we saw against Shane.
Going 2-4 and making semis is weirdo behavior.
Classic US
That's
Open.
weird.
Classic US
Uh,
Open.
yeah, I mean, I agree with you, and uh, I feel like they're super dependent on Chris Lung to be the guy who is the spark, right? When you say if they're hitting, they're unstoppable, most of that means like is Chris Lung just like timing everybody up. I think at his best, he's their best player. After that, I think Vicky Chen's probably like their most stable player who I would highlight. Um, I like the team. I like them coming in. I picked them to make semis. Go me. Maybe that makes up for my Fury flub, but uh, yeah, it's such a weird record on the weekend. I mean, one of their wins was 11-10 over Slow. Like, I don't know. Hard to know exactly what to take away from such a weird aberrational performance. It feels like I do think that they are like a quarters quality team though. So uh, that's mostly neutral for me.
I feel like I give a lot of neutrals out this weekend. So many teams were just up and down, like Lawless goes 2-4, but is like one goal away from beating Hybrid. Uh, Exist has like a bad start, gets crushed by BFG, but also gets like nice wins against Shame and Mixtape. Maybe Mixtape 15-7. Is Mixtape like mega thumbs down? You have to be. They got killed by all the real
Have
teams.
to. I think we need to be concerned about them. I don't know. Like, are we seeing the window close?
I
I'm
mean, they're
disappointed.
way
I expected
behind
more from
Red
them.
Flag and BFG. Are they, I mean, like, what's the latest on the? Are they going to get a bid?
That would be a dark day. I
Because
feel
like, if
like.
there's only two bids, they're not going to nationals. They Moondog is sitting on the 15th spot right now and grabbing a bid. But Mixtape is 27th in the rankings. Like that's kind of wild. I mean, I feel like they're better than that, but you can't argue with the results. They just don't look good.
Aubrey says, "Welcome to Schmixed." Sounds about right. Might win
Okay, how about the
nationals
women's
now.
division, Keith? Scandal. What are you thinking?
Uh, I am. I think I'm a slight thumbs up. I'll go thumbs up because I'm not gonna qualify it. Uh, I think that while I think their overall results, like their resume itself, would be neutral. I think that the talent flashed a little bit more on the field than I'd expected. I think Marie Privier looks like she could make it a big
Yes, thank
three
you.
with Claire Trope and Cami Groom.
Oh yeah.
I think that some of their D line players who like maybe are less talked about. I know Amanda Murphy is like uh all the players player. All the players talk about how great Amanda Murphy was. She was awesome. Allie Wallace I think has really stepped up. So I think that they're on a good trajectory right now.
Yeah, I feel really good about Scandal. I mean, honestly, I feel better about Scandal now than I did last US Open when they had that kind of breakout performance because I think that they have more to build from and not be the team that kind of gets left at the altar in finals and like has no answers. Like yes, they lose twice to Fury, but they also get like really good wins. Like they easy 6 goal win against Ben, 4 goal win against Molly. Like they are right there and they'll have things to work on to fix from the Fury losses. And if they can clean up the offense a little bit against particularly that team, I think that they could go out and win a championship this year. So I'm feeling pretty good about it. Um, I already gave my thoughts on Brute and Fury. How about Molly, Keith? I think it's got to be thumbs down, right? I know they won most of their games, but that loss to Scandal hurts.
Yeah, I still think from watching them play, I'm thumbs up after everything said and done, to be honest with
Okay.
you. I think they actually played pretty poorly then, and I guess we kind of knew that was in the range of outcomes, but the way individual players are playing gives me a lot of hope. Claire Chastain still looks every bit one of the best players in the world. You know what you're going to get from Vale and Manu. I think that's pretty well established. But it was the supporting cast. It was the way Bailey Shigley and Cassie Swafford were playing that starts to make me feel a little bit better. Plus, Lisa P, like she's still got it. She's definitely still got it. So I think there's a lot to
15
like
assists,
about
7
Molly Brown.
turnovers.
Yeah, and she was a problem. She was still a matchup problem. The size and the throwing combination just makes her hard to really cover. So yeah, and they're still figuring. Like it seems like they're still integrating some of the new pieces. Kennedy McCarthy, as an example. But I think there's a lot of promise for Molly Brown to continue to be a full-on title contender.
Real quick before we go to break, shout out to the YCC champions. Anything stand out to you, Keith, from the youth club side of things at the U.S. Open?
Trite as it may be to say, the kids are so good. They keep getting better. I mean, like these conditions were not super favorable, I feel like. And the players played pretty well despite that fact. And that was part of what was impressive to me. I was lucky to get to call the absolutely wild boys final. Dramatic, very dramatic game, a lot of emotions, a lot of energy. And so that was a really fun game. Probably the game of the weekend as it went down to it. And also, just like more props to these communities. I think it was really cool to see Dallas get the win. We kind of knew what they could do last year, and for those who weren't following along, they had an injury to one of their star players last year. It felt like it kind of derailed their performance, and they basically returned almost everybody from that group. A couple of their top players they graduated, but they returned a lot of people. So I think this kind of continuity for them, and so it's cool for them to get to celebrate that. And all the plaudits to Downpour for I don't know how they do it, how they keep getting these players together, but just absolutely masterful. This has been one of the most dominant 4 years of Ultimate at any respective division that I've ever seen. I mean, they've been incredible.
Yeah, I feel like maybe they won't win next year. They're like finally going to lose enough talent that they can't keep doing it. But I mean, they beat a good Buddha team so easily. Maybe we're going to just see a long-term run from Oregon. I mean, unless Seattle wants to send their best players to compete in the girls' division, which they have not been doing, uh, I just don't know. Like, are we going to see another team step up? I really don't know. Um, fun tournament though this year for sure. Really, really, really talented young players coming out of college into colleges this upcoming season.
Wait.
All right,
I have one more
let's
thing.
take a break.
I got to address this. I got
Okay.
to address this. I got chirped by Oxshop by AK about Sam Grossberg, and I don't remember now if it was Michael Marone or Kyle Ford. I didn't reply because they just won. They just won on Universe Point. I want people to celebrate. Those are great players. They should be celebrated. But don't chirp me about that being the best in the world when it was so much of the supporting cast that got stuff done. The guys people were talking like Nolan McClintock, like Reed Dowdy. Don't do not erase them by telling me how great Michael Marone and Sam Grossberg are. Thank you. Put some respect on these other guys' names.
I mean, I think it's still acceptable to say that Sam Grossberg is an incredible
Totally,
talent. I mean, he could be special
totally
too.
acceptable chirp. We love good chirps here. We love good chirps.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're talking UFA playoff weekend number 2 and the situation at the European Youth Ultimate Championships over in Belgium. We'll be back.
Hey,
Whether you're gearing up for a TCT event or summer league, YCC competition or masters, Breakmark can help your team get kitted out.
Their bundles get you everything your team needs, and each one comes with a free reversible and 5-panel hat. Whatever your game, breakmark.com is the place to get your team ready this season.
We are back on Deep Look. It is time for week 2 of the UFA Playoffs. We are through to the Divisional Championship round, and there are 8 teams left in the mix for a UFA title this year. Let's see, we got one game tomorrow, Friday. That's Carolina at Atlanta. And then the other 3 games, Seattle at Salt Lake, Boston at DC, and Madison at Minnesota, all taking place on Saturday night. Keith, let's break these down. I already put my picks in the UFA producers Slack, and I'm sticking with them. But I want to hear yours. Do you feel like we're going to see all the 1 seeds moving on? That's the bet we got, right?
It is. So I better feel that way, or otherwise I just got to make a donation to the Charlie Eisenhower Fund. I am going to stick with it because I'm a man of strong constitution. There are plenty of like cases like for there to be upsets here. I actually asked in our Discord, and we've got a few votes in, but we'll leave it up for later today about which is the most likely upset. And the crowd heavily favoring the Carolina upset over the rest. Not to say that they're favoring Carolina over Atlanta. They're just favoring Carolina to be the most likely team to upset. Obviously you got all these teams playing on the road, and for some divisions that's meant more than others. I mean, Madison needed a freaking miracle to get out of that last game against Chicago. That's not exact. I know Minnesota hasn't been the most convincing team, but it's not like Madison's inspiring confidence with that. I do think that game could be a nice ugly grind fest, which is what Madison wants, but I think Minnesota can play that game. Is there some Babbitt wizardry in the mix? I couldn't think of an alliteration for that, but does he have something up his sleeve for DC? I don't know. Are you betting against DC after the way Truck Stop just played? Do that at your own peril. So, like, I feel like I'm in a position to take all the favorites to advance, stick with the historical precedents, and rest my head on my pillow comfortably without stress.
That the Homer Simpson meme, just like deep asleep. Listen, I'm taking 3 of the 4 home teams.
Oh yeah, who is it going to be?
Minnesota has had Madison's number, and I think that Madison will turn that game into a bit of a slog, as they are wont to do. But I just don't think that they have quite enough talent to get past Minnesota on the road. So I think Minnesota wins close. I think DC is going to destroy Boston in a similar way to how they kind of just obliterated New York. I think it's a tough ask for Boston to go on the road and win at DC. And man, I mean, the chemistry that they're all playing with right now is hard to believe. I mean, they just look so sharp. Salt Lake is just simply a better team than Seattle. Seattle has not passed the tests. I do think that game could be a little closer than people might expect. Seattle, after going down really big in their regular season matchup to decide who got the 1 seed, kind of made it interesting later in the game. But I also feel like Salt Lake plays with their food a little bit when they get a lead. So I don't know, kind of a weird team, Salt Lake. I have very little faith in them at championship weekend, but I do think they can get past Seattle. It is Carolina that I'm picking to upset Atlanta. There's just too much heartbreak, Keith, for this Atlanta franchise and really the city overall.
No, don't even. Just stop it. I'm leaving. Y'all tell me. It's somebody. I'm muting this. Tell me when he's done.
He's gonna turn off his video.
Tell me. I'm leaving.
Wait. I'm getting word. I will admit I have not sat down and looked at rosters. Our producer Lindsay Sue just posted that Carolina is dealing with some injuries right now. Now I'm like, okay, what's going on? So Paul Yannick is questionable. Trevor Lynch questionable. Okay. Otherwise, it's the standard crew. But I think no Saul, that that would be tough. That's going to make things tougher for sure. Is Lucas McClamrock not playing? I feel like I'm surprised. Wonder if he's hurt.
He was a question mark. He's hurt, as is Matt Smith, who's been out for a little while. I think there were some questions
Okay.
about McClamrock, and then also Justin Burnett. At least what I heard from the swing pass guys. I think they had questions about both of those guys being in, but right now Burnett listed as active and McClamrock's listed as dressed but not active.
Yeah, I feel like we should be getting a little bit more of an injury report than just dressed. Um, but we'll see. I'm sticking with it. I think we're going to see some heroics from Tobias Brooks and Durs. And I don't know. It really, the Hustle have been the better team. There's no doubt. I think if the Hustle play their best game, they will win. But I just don't know that I believe that they're going to do that. I mean, this is a team that should have easily gone to championship weekend last year, and then they lost to Austin. And that Austin team is way worse than this Carolina team. So I don't know that I believe that they're going to get past the Demons, Keith. I'm sorry to say it. I think that they talent wise could win the whole league, but I just think that it's going to be another heartbreak season for the Hustle.
Nah, Justin Burnett gonna go crazy. That's I was I was like wistfully perusing my Twitter, like pining for the days when Twitter and Ultimate Twitter were fun and not and going on X.com didn't make me feel like a sack of shit. And I found an old message about us talking about Justin Burnett, I think during YCCs, and how he was like a sophomore in high school, and he was like he like commented and corrected us. It was like, actually, I just graduated college early, or I graduated high school early. So I am in fact in college and not high school or something like that. Uh, and I was just like, is this guy for real? Like, who is this guy? He's like this ridiculous athlete, and also can graduate high school early. The man's like a living superhero. He's about to carry the Hustle to the promised land. He's going to break all these Atlanta sports curses. You're going to see Trae Young at championship weekend. He's going to be out there wearing a Justin Burnett jersey, going like this. With Hank Aaron's going to be there. It's going to be great. Hustle are going to win this game. They're going to win. They're going to win the championship. Everybody's going to go to homegrown in Decatur. Atlanta's going to be on top forever. And go Braves. I don't know. I love my city.
Wow. Wow. All right. Well, Keith is all in right now. These games should be fun. I mean, I think that the truth is that all of the underdog teams could win. And that is not something that has been the case in past seasons, where like there have been times when it's very, very, very clearly going to be the one seed that advances. But while I almost certainly would say that at least two of the four one seeds will advance, I do think it's very possible that any of the one seeds could lose. And so the game should be a
This
lot of
is
fun to watch.
most compelling divisional championship slate, I think, that I can recall in the league.
For sure. All right, let's talk about the European Youth Ultimate Championships. Normally, this is not a tournament that would get discussed on Deep Look. No disrespect to the U17s of Europe. I think it's great that they have an annual tournament to compete in. This is basically like a YCC type tournament for Europe. But the tournament was delayed with its start because the Israeli teams are represented at the tournament in the I believe it's open and mixed divisions. Yes,
That's right.
and there were some concerns about having the Israeli teams competing at the main field site due to the uh, conflict in Gaza. And so they made like a satellite, they got a satellite field for just the Israel games. And the night before the tournament was set to start, that stadium was vandalized. with boycott Israel now, Israhell, with red paint thrown on the walls. And then, so they delayed the tournament for an entire day. They did not start the tournament on time. And ultimately, the mayor's office in this town in Belgium where the games were going to be happening decided to not allow the Israeli delegations to compete at all. So the whole article is up on UltiWorld, but it goes to show you, Keith, that like political issues are like gonna. I mean, this is not gonna go away anytime soon. And I think, well, I'd like to get your take on things here, and then I have a couple thoughts to share.
It's sad. I mean, my initial reaction is sadness. I understand that there are a lot of people who disagree with what's going on in Israel and Palestine, and I have no issue with that thought. But I also think that like this is a bunch of teenage kids who probably have nothing to do with any of that, and so it feels pretty unfair to target them, to punish these kids. These are real people, individuals. Not They are not a representative of their government any more than I think Oregon Downpour is representative of the U.S. government, right? Like, I think it's kind of silly, even if they're like out representing Israel. Like, I think the size of these communities are totally out of whack with that. So I feel I get the symbolism and whatnot, but it makes me sad for the kids is the number one thing I think. There's a lot of competing pieces of information out there. It's kind of hard to know exactly who to believe. When you have differing messages from the Israeli delegates, I'll say, and from the police force in Belgium, it's hard to know. I don't have enough information to really say who's right and who's wrong. The police force there said that they felt like it was a security risk. They couldn't adequately protect people, and that was not corroborated by the statement from the folks from Israel. So it's already messy when you have those competing views out there. I think it's a little weird that they decided to separate the Israeli competition. That feels like it makes it easier to target them rather than harder. Like, you can do so and disrupt the event minimally rather than having to weigh the costs of disrupting the entire event just to harass these kids and make your statement. So I found that decision was a little odd, but I'm also, again, not a security professional by any means. So strange situation, sad, and I get why a lot of people are angry about it in both directions. It's a very emotionally charged conflict with very real costs, and so I understand that. But like, I ultimately think about the kids, and it feels really unfair for them to be the targets of this kind of harassment.
Yeah, I mean, when you say both directions, I mean, like, this is a Frisbee tournament. Like, Israeli teams should be able to play in youth Frisbee tournaments. I mean, maybe some people disagree with that, but like, I certainly feel like this is the kind of thing that is helpful for building bridges and getting people to find unity rather than the alternative. Um, as you say, it's impossible to know like what the local authorities know about this situation that might not be public. But based on what I can see, I feel like it is disappointing from the local authorities in Belgium to bar these Israeli teams from playing when like this is like minimal vandalism, and Israel teams are traveling with their own security delegation of some kind. And like, what are the odds that people like really are trying to like attack an Israeli under 17 ultimate Frisbee team? I find that to be a big stretch. So I think that's a little bit disappointing. I mean, I'll read a quote from the statement from the mayor of Ghent. From the previous overview, it is undeniably clear that there is a very real possibility of actions occurring if an Israeli team participates in a European championship, with all the associated consequences. Considering this, it is evident that public order and the safety of spectators and participants cannot be guaranteed. if the tournament were to take place at Vladimirsson in the presence of an Israeli delegation. Um, the acting mayor of De Pinte, I don't know if I'm saying these names right, unfortunately, um, said that, quote, however, let me just read from this part. Our local police also consider that there are too many uncertain factors to guarantee the safety of those present during the sport tournament on our territory. Um, I find it to be a bit of a stretch that there's actual security risk here for, you know, children playing Frisbee. But on the other hand, we don't know what information they have that we might not have access to.
Yeah, it's a wild situation. Uh, so it was very surprising to me to even come across as a bulletin, but that's what happens when you have a really extreme event occurring in the world.
Yeah. Um, it's made fairly, it's made headlines in Israel. I had a friend in New York City who's Jewish, who reached out, who doesn't have anything to do with Ultimate, and mentioned this story to me. So it's like, it has definitely like become a bit of a headline. And I mean, it's just I find it all very sad. I feel bad for the kids. I feel bad for the tournament and the organizers of the tournament. And this does feel like one of those things where it's just easier for the authorities to say, no, you can't play, and not have to worry about like trying to make sure that people are safe. All right, let's go to our question of the week. I thought you were going to take us there, Keith, but I will take us there. Time for our question of the week. What do we got?
All right. Well, our question of the week comes from Sean in the Discord. That is the place to be if you want to ask us a question of the week. What's the premier throwing connection? And Sean asked about the men's division. I'm curious to get your thoughts on the other divisions too. What's the premier throwing connection, i.e., one player to another player in each division? And he cites previous examples like Mikkel to Kotcher or Ashland Joy and Empo Kittredge. This is actually a pretty tough question in my opinion.
There's not a slam dunk obvious answer. My, my my first thought is anyone to Rafi Hayes. That's the connection right now. Just put it up and he's going to bring it down. Um, but yeah, I don't know if we have an Ashland to Bo type connection right now. I mean, Malks to Boxley's got to be up there after what we've been seeing from that O line. But there's not like Truck's really balanced. Like they're not necessarily like the same duo over and over again.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of out of style right now. It doesn't quite fit with the style of the top level teams. Like I definitely wouldn't. It's hard for me to even think of somebody on Truck. I think maybe Machine is the most focused offense, with like Joe White and Nate Goff, and maybe that's U.S. Open specific. Like maybe with OJ Samar back in the mix, that gets a little more diverse. But I think of those two as being really the keystones for that O line. Maybe like Atkins and Finer, but like, are you gonna ignore Nethercutt and Coolman? Like, so it's actually pretty tough. Um,
It's
Anybody to
tough.
Jeff Babbitt. Same thing. Women's divisions, like it feels that way about Claire Trope. Anybody throwing to Claire Trope, right? Like
Right.
uh,
Right.
Vale
Yes.
throwing to anybody. But it's hard. It's surprisingly difficult for me to think of like a duo that really drives a team. Like maybe in the women's division, it's like Yina and Ella Youngst, or Yina and
That was
Jenny
one of
DeJesus
the
now.
pairs that I thought of, but I feel like I haven't watched them play quite enough to feel like that's like you're seeing the deep shots, you know?
It does. I guess it doesn't have to be deep shots, right?
I feel like the spirit of the question is deep shots. Ashland to Bow was Huck to Ashland Huck to Bow. Like they beat Truck on Universe in a classic quarterfinal with that exact matchup and that throw. And everybody knew it was coming, and it didn't matter. So, yeah, I don't know.
I feel
It's
like
kind of tough, isn't it?
I feel like in mixed, I saw like a
Regaki to
lot of.
McGuckin.
I feel like I saw a lot of like Sifo and Sage Jezersky to Connor Belfield and Lucas Ambrose. That's like a quadrant of
Belfield
players.
is probably he is a superstar deep cutter right now. That's for sure. I think that's part of the reason that BFG lost the final. Maybe the biggest part of the reason. I mean, that Belfield wasn't playing. He just really creates some dynamism on their offense.
Yeah, I think this question is interesting, but I also think it just kind of led me to feeling like this is just not the style of play anymore.
Like a super sturdy superstar center handler throwing to a superstar deep cutter. It's just, you're right. It feels like
And
the
like
meta
big,
of 10 years ago.
and also like the isolation style. Like I feel like the current meta doesn't really lead you to just like funneling the disc into the same hands. Maybe it will feel differently by the time Nationals rolls around, and like, Lee Sevier has 35 goals and so does Jeff Babbitt or whatnot, but it doesn't feel like the game is quite that way anymore.
Innocent says CJ Keeper to Carl Crawford.
What community Innocent is from?
I wonder, yeah. All right. Well, hey, that is going to do it for this edition of Deep Look. We appreciate everybody getting in their questions in the Discord, subscribing. Make sure you hit a little like button over here on the YouTube. And if you listen to us in a podcast app, give us a review wherever you get your podcasts. For Keith Rayner, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long. We'll talk to you in the Discord for our Out the Back segment starting in just a couple minutes. Keith, talk to you next week. 28-3, Keith.
What? Why'd I catch a stray like that? On the way out of the door.